Hey guys, it's me Quinn, and this is an awesome day. No, it's raining outside. I don't know. I just seen this post, and it kind of brought an interesting conversation for me to kind of have, or just to kind of discuss and just express how I feel. It basically was talking about, are you conscious if you're a homophobe? Oh, can I read the exact title? It was on Harriet.com, and it's basically called "You're Not Conscious If You're a Homophobe." Um, I don't know, I think that's an interesting discussion. I recently had a conversation with my friend, and we were talking. I was talking about like how I was. I'm still kind of thinking about transferring to the school, but it's an HBCU. Now I'm supposed to be graduating next year, but certain circumstances may force me to actually have to transfer. But the shirt is so puffy. But yeah, I was just talking to him about like I felt like me as an individual, like I may just have to be stealth in regard to my transness, just because this it's the South for one, and two it's a giant black community, and I'm not saying that the black community is the most homophobic or most transphobic or most LGBT esque phobic, if that makes any sense. But all I'm really saying is that I know that in these kind of spaces I would deal with the erasure of who I am, or just I wouldn't be invited into certain spaces. So yeah. Um, I'll be stealth, but not to a point where I'm just trying to get with people and stuff like that. I'll be stealth for my own safety, and also just to have, oh, sorry, to have certain opportunities that everyone else would, be granted. So, I just think that's a very interesting conversation that someone else said. I was just thinking about this kind of thing. I think that a lot of people are so pro Black Lives Matter, pro blackness, like as far as progression and things like that, education, just our whole development as a community, but they don't really discuss, the um, the black LGBT space or sphere. It's never really discussed. It's always like this thing like, oh, we don't talk about this just because like, oh, religion, da 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 da. And I feel like personally I kinda agree with this kind of that post, well, that article, just because if you really think about it, it's like you're homophobic or you're transphobic because of the way society kind of the way society molded you to think about these things, as far as your religion, as far as television. It's the same thing with white people who are racist. It's like not all of them are intentional. Well, not all of them like just hate black people, but the things that they do can be oppressive toward our community, just because like the way they are raised, the way they are taught. They can't help that a woman might just generally feel like clutch her purse just because that's how she was like socialized or what she was taught. I'm not saying that it was okay, but it's just something that's taught. And I feel like when you come into your consciousness, whether it's your whatever consciousness it is, and you're aware of what how society is kind of holding people back in that nature, then you realize that um, you don't oppress another specific group. You will uplift them as well, and also you wouldn't necessarily like erase them or push them out of your community. They will be within your community. Um, Not necessarily just because you are not LGBT or you're not queer or you're not gay, you're not a lesbian, you're not trans, you don't like trans, or you're not attracted to trans women or whatever the case may be, you still, um, you don't, you're more open and accepting just because you know that society in the past has socialized you to think about things certain a certain way, even like with religion. Like I'm I'm not religious or anything, but I don't, I still deal with people who are trying to like shove the religion down my throat, telling me that, oh, you're doing this, is da da da, da 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 da, so it's still there, it still exists, but I just think it's a very interesting conversation because a lot of people like to just say, say they're so woke, they're so conscious, they're so this, but I feel like personally you can't be conscious if you're patriarchal. You can't be conscious if you're homophobic. You can't be conscious if you are. Well, you know what? Let me scratch that. You can be conscious, but I believe I had a conversation with someone, and I believe that it's levels. There's different levels to your consciousness, like in regard to, if you're you can be conscious, like just be aware of things that are going on socially or economically or even educationally, but you may not be socially aware or accepting of the stigmas or the negative stigmas or the stereotypes or things that we face as a black community. Now, you may be aware of the statistical thing like, oh, kids in the urban area don't have the same opportunities, but um, you might not understand why Rachel Dolezal cannot be transracial. Or you might be conscious and you might just think like, oh, women belong. You still believe in the domestication of women, like that's a thing. So I think it's very interesting when getting into this conversation of consciousness, just because it depends. I believe it's levels. Like it's level to the shit. Like it's literal legit levels to, your consciousness. Like you have your social. I don't know per se how do you define the levels, but I just know that there are levels, and I believe like the highest level is knowing that everything is problematic. But it's like you have to kind of you don't define your life off of the problematics of society. You define your life as you as an individual, and you just try to navigate around those spaces, and you learn. You're open to learning, and when you realize that something is problematic, you try your best to navigate around it, even though you're socialized to do this. Like saying, I used to be a person who always said this is retarded, or that's retarded, that's stupid, and then you learn like, oh, that's ableist, and sometimes like, oh, people just nitpicking off everything. That could be my answer, or it can be like, oh wow, I've never really thought about it like that. What can I do to alter my perception on this phrase, this word, or even like gypsy. I don't remember what it was, but I know Jessica Lee had a thing with the word gypsy and how some people kind of commented and told her about that word, and she was just like, okay. She went about it and corrected it. She didn't necessarily like say, oh, that's stupid. I'm not da 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 da. Like when you get to a level of I believe like the final form, your freezer final form, or your final level of consciousness. Personally, I believe is just being aware that it's not your narrative isn't the only one. That's one thing. Two, the way you navigate is not it's not just all about you. It's about the things you do and how you come in contact, and you're aware of certain things. You're aware in all spheres, socioeconomically, um, socioeconomically, educational wise, just societal in general. You're aware of all societal um, oppressions, and you're not necessarily aware, but you're open to learning. Like you have to be open, and I believe that level of consciousness is something that I'm still, trying to get in the space of, because even with my femininity, and I'm finding myself, and I'm defining the way I'm feminine or who I am as a woman off of what someone told me or what I see on TV or what I feel like it is, and I catch myself doing that sometimes. I like bigger clothes. Like I like wearing bigger tops and like tight pants or whatever. Like that's my thing. That's my aesthetic. But it gets so difficult because you feel like sometimes I feel like my shape isn't showing, and I feel like I want to be more womanly because a lot of people say that think I'm masculine. Like I had someone thought I was a lesbian, so it's like just because of the way I dress, it's like no, it doesn't make me harder by the way I dress. But back to this conversation about being just conscious, I just think that's really it. Okay, I'm gonna stop babbling, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.